The bow trembled a little in Zora's hand, but the note came out clear enough. She looked up at me with wide eyes, waiting. "Try that last measure again," I said softly. "Keep your elbow lifted, like we practiced." She adjusted her posture and began again. This time, smoother, more confident, still imperfect, but full of intention. And heart. I sat beside her on the floor of our small living room, surrounded by stacks of sheet music and the familiar scent of rosin. It wasn't much. A quiet house outside Seattle, a used couch, a cracked window in the hallway. But this moment was ours. My daughter and I, learning something slowly, together. The violin she played had once belonged to my father. He was a public school orchestra teacher for 30 years. That instrument was the only thing I kept when he died. It wasn't a Stradivarius, but it was deeply mine. I'd learned on it. I'd grieved through it. And now I was teaching my daughter with it. Zora finished the phrase and looked over at me. "Did I mess up the high A?" "Little bit," I smiled. "But you fixed it. That's the part that matters." She smiled back, proud. Then came the sound I dreaded more than a wrong note. High heels on hardwood. The front door opened without knocking, again, and Regina walked in like she owned the place. She always did. "Grandma!" Zora jumped up and ran to her. "Hello, my darling." Regina wrapped her arms around her, kissing her hair. "You've gotten taller again, haven't you?" Or maybe just more elegant. I stood and wiped my hands on my jeans. "We were in the middle of something." Regina's eyes flicked to the violin resting on its stand. "That old thing still lives?" "It works fine," I said. "It's been with me a long time." She smiled, tight and judgmental. "Some things are best left in the past." Zora turned to her. "Grandma, do you play violin too?" That question froze me. Regina smoothed her hair. "Oh, I studied at Juilliard, sweetheart." "Not just violin, of course. Music theory, conducting, full immersion." I bit my tongue. Regina never specified what she'd actually played at Juilliard, or if she'd finished, or when. But every time she brought it up, it felt like a warning shot aimed at me. Zora's eyes lit up. "Can I come to your house tomorrow? Maybe you can teach me." Regina smiled wider. "I was hoping you'd say that." Zora looked at me, seeking permission. My heart dropped. I nodded anyway. "Sure, if you want, yay." Regina gave me a look like she'd just won something. Then she took my daughter's hand and walked into the kitchen as if it were her own. Regina never approved of me. I wasn't Juilliard. I wasn't legacy. I wasn't someone who came from anything. I met Raphael in college, community college to be exact, when he tutored me in Excel spreadsheets. We got married 6 years later, built our lives from scratch. We were stable, happy enough. But Regina saw me as a placeholder, someone temporary until her son came to his senses. When Zora was born, she played the role of doting grandmother just enough to look good at family functions, but she kept her distance, until now. 2 days later, I came home from errands and something was off. The violin stand was gone. The case was gone. I checked the closet, the hallway, behind the couch. Nothing. "Raphael?" I called out. He appeared from the kitchen holding his laptop. "Hey, what's up?" "Where's the violin?" "Oh, Mom handled it," he said, as if I'd asked about laundry. I blinked. "What do you mean, handled it?" "She said it was warped. Said it might damage Zora's technique, so she brought a new one." "It's in Zora's room." I didn't respond. I walked down the hall in silence and opened Zora's door. There it was, a brand new violin in a sleek, padded case, polished, modern, cold. Zora looked up from her coloring book. "Grandma got it for me. Do you like it?" I stepped into the room. "What happened to mine?" "She said it was old and kinda smelly." She threw it out. Something cracked inside me. I couldn't speak. I turned and walked straight to the kitchen. Regina was there, pouring herself a cup of green tea. "You threw away my father's violin?" My voice shook. She didn't flinch. It was practically falling apart. "I did you a favor. You had no right." She sipped casually. "Oh, don't be dramatic. You should be thanking me. Zora needs proper tools if she's going to grow." That thing was holding her back. "It wasn't yours to touch." She smiled. "And yet, here we are." After that, she started coming every afternoon. At first it was just to check on Zora's posture. Then it became full lessons. She brought a metal stand, new method books, a posture strap, a digital tuner. She rearranged our living room furniture for acoustics, and she made it clear I was no longer needed. "I think it's best if we keep the room quiet during sessions," she said one day. "Less distraction." So I sat in the hallway and listened. Sometimes it was silent. Sometimes Zora played a few scales. Most of the time, Regina just talked. "You're a prodigy, you know," she'd say. "Your mother means well, but she can't teach refinement." Zora started to believe her. One evening at dinner, Zora glanced at me. "Grandma said you only learned music from high school orchestra. Is that true?" I put my fork down. "I learned from your grandfather. He was a teacher." She said that's not the same as training. I looked her in the eye. "It's not the same. It's better." The next Saturday, I was chopping onions when Regina strolled into the kitchen humming. "I have news," she said brightly. "I've invited a few friends, former colleagues. We're throwing a little birthday gathering next weekend." Raphael looked up from his phone. "That's great." She turned to me. "Zora will perform a little piece. Something simple, something elegant. We've been working on it together," I froze. "A performance?" "Yes, just one little solo. Don't worry, you won't need to help with anything. I'll be managing it all." Zora peeked into the kitchen. She looked unsure. "Is that okay, sweetheart?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I guess." Regina clapped her hands. "It'll be the perfect debut for a child trained properly." I felt something twist in my chest. She wasn't just stealing my daughter's music. She was stealing my daughter. The next few days blurred together. Regina showed up every afternoon, sometimes even before Zora got home from school. She'd let herself in with the spare key we kept under the flower pot, something Raphael never questioned. She brought more accessories, new sheet music, a folding stool, a metronome that beeped like an alarm clock. She filled our living room with things I hadn't asked for and claimed space that used to be mine. I tried not to interfere. I watched from the kitchen, listened from the hallway. Zora played, but it wasn't the same. She hesitated more, second-guessed herself. And Regina? She barely taught. She corrected posture, sure. She barked things like elbow up or bow straighter. But there was no music in her voice, no rhythm in her presence, just control. One afternoon, I found Zora alone in her room, her bow sitting unused on the bed. "No lesson today?" I asked gently. She shrugged. "Grandma talked a lot." I got tired. I sat beside her. "What did she talk about?" "She said I'm gifted, and don't really need to practice like other kids. She said it's about blood. Talent skips generations sometimes." My stomach twisted. "Sweetheart, talent matters, but so does practice. Discipline." Heart Zora blinked up at me. "Did you practice a lot when you were little?" "Every day," I said, "even when I hated it, even when I cried. That's how I got better." She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "I miss practicing with you." That broke something in me. That night, I brought out my student violin, the cheap one I hadn't touched in years. Not the one my father gave me. That was gone. But my fingers still remembered what to do. I waited until everyone was asleep. I sat at the dining table with the lights low and played slowly, deliberately. Not scales, not exercises. A piece I hadn't touched since college. It didn't matter that the strings buzzed or the body was unbalanced. It was mine. I didn't realize Zora was standing in the hallway until she whispered, "That was beautiful." I startled, lowered the bow. "Couldn't sleep?" She patted over in her socks. "Can you play more?" I smiled. "Only if you promise to go to bed after." "Deal." She sat cross-legged on the floor, chin in her hands. I played until her breathing softened, then carried her to bed. As I tucked her in, she murmured, "I want you to play at Grandma's party." I froze. "She said I'm the only one performing," she added. "But I think they should hear you too." I brushed hair from her forehead. "Only if you ask Grandma to play something too." Zora grinned sleepily. "She says she's better than you. So I want to hear it." I kissed her goodnight, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't name. The week before the party passed in slow, building tension. Regina made subtle announcements every day. "We'll have about 30 guests. A string quartet, light refreshments. Nothing flashy. Zora will perform Minuet number 2. It's simple, but shows control. I've ordered a custom stand banner. It'll say, 'Zora, debut under Regina's guidance.' Elegant, isn't it?" I said nothing. Neither did Raphael. The day before the party, I found the kitchen table covered with printed programs. Zora's name is on the front, Regina said. Inside there's a short bio. I included that she's my granddaughter and that she's been training under me for 3 weeks now. I looked up. Did you mention she was playing with me for a year before that? Regina smirked. That's hardly relevant. You never studied formally, I clenched my jaw. I studied with my father for 10 years. And where did that get you? She asked, pouring herself a cup of tea. I didn't answer. That evening, I caught Raphael in the hallway. Can we talk? He hesitated. Sure. I don't want Zora in the middle of this. He frowned. Middle of what? Your mother's ego trip. He sighed. Pen, it's just a little birthday concert. No, it's her rewriting history. She's pushing me out of my own child's life. She threw away my violin. She's claiming credit for everything Zora learned. He rubbed his temple. Mom's not perfect, but she's not trying to hurt you. She's not trying to help either. Can't you just let her have this? One day? It's her birthday. I stared at him. It's not about the birthday. He walked away before I could finish. The morning of the party, I woke early and baked lemon scones from scratch. Zora helped me decorate them with sugared zest like we used to. Her face was bright, but I could tell she was nervous. Are you excited? I asked. She nodded. Kinda. Grandma says if I do well, I might get invited to a junior music program. I paused. You know, those programs take more than one piece. They take time, effort. I know, she said. I just want her to be proud. She already is, I said. But it's okay to play for yourself too. Guests started arriving just after noon. Neighbors, old friends of Regina's, a few polished strangers in scarves and blazers. Someone brought wine. Someone else brought a violin case, just in case they needed a duet. I stayed mostly in the kitchen, replenishing hors d'oeuvres and trying to stay invisible. Eventually, Regina clinked her glass. Thank you all for coming, she beamed. It means so much to be surrounded by people who appreciate music, elegance, and tradition. And today is even more special because I get to introduce my granddaughter's very first public performance. Polite applause. Regina gestured toward the living room, where a single chair and music stand had been staged like a spotlight. Zora stepped forward. She looked beautiful in her pale blue dress, hair curled, violin in hand. She glanced at me once, just once, and I gave her the smallest nod. She began to play. The first notes of Minuet number 2 filled the room, a little rushed, a little flat, but sweet, earnest. Zora was trying her best, and I could see it in every measured movement. The final note trembled slightly as it faded. There was a pause, then warm applause. Regina rushed forward to kiss her forehead. Lovely, darling. Just lovely. Zora whispered something in her ear. Regina's smile froze. Then Zora turned to the crowd and said, My mom's going to play something too. Heads turned. Murmurs stirred. Regina's jaw clenched, but she stepped aside. I rose from the back of the room, slowly walking toward the front with my cheap student violin in hand. People made room. I stood, tuned silently, and lifted the bow. I played not a polished recital piece, but something with weight and sorrow and teeth. The room fell quiet. When I finished, there was no sound. Then applause, real applause, from the gut. Eyes found me with curiosity, then admiration, then confusion, and finally, suspicion. Zora beamed. The applause hadn't even died down when she turned to Regina and said, loud enough for every guest to hear, Grandma, now it's your turn. Regina blinked, froze, then forced a laugh. Oh, sweetheart, not today. Zora frowned. But you said you play better than Mom? A few people chuckled awkwardly. Someone coughed into their wineglass. I stood quietly to the side, violin resting in my hands. Regina smoothed her dress. My wrists are a bit stiff lately. And besides, today is about you, darling. But you promised, Zora insisted. You said I could hear you play if I practiced hard enough. Regina's smile thinned. Yes, well, there isn't time now. Maybe another day? The room had shifted. The warm energy from earlier now felt edged, like people were waiting to see what came next. Zora turned to me. Mom, what did Grandma study at Juilliard again? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. From the back of the room, someone said, Wait, didn't she say she was teaching Zora everything herself? Another voice chimed in, and that she used to give recitals. Regina's eyes darted from face to face. Well, I did study. Years ago. Conducting. Mostly theory. I never claimed to be a full-time violinist. But you said you were better than Mom, Zora said, confused now, not accusing. And that she didn't know real technique. Regina's voice sharpened. Zora, that's enough. Zora shrank a little but didn't back down. I just wanted to hear you play. The silence that followed was louder than the applause had been. I stepped forward, not to defend Regina, but to steady my daughter. You played beautifully today, I told her. That's what matters. Zora looked up at me. Thanks. But I didn't learn that from Grandma. And there it was. Gasps were stifled. Regina looked like she'd been slapped. Someone near the window muttered, So she wasn't teaching her after all? A man from Regina's bridge club asked, Penelope, were you the one giving lessons before? I nodded. Since Zora was 5. Regina snapped, Oh, please. She learned by watching videos. Anyone can mimic a melody. She played from the sheet music I gave her, I said, calm now. The one you threw away when you replaced my father's violin. Regina's face turned blotchy. It was garbage. No, I said quietly. It was a memory. A connection. You didn't just throw away wood and strings. You threw away the hours I spent with her and with him. Regina opened her mouth to reply, but nothing came out. Zora turned to her, brows furrowed. You said Mom's violin was broken. That she gave up. You said she only played lullabies. More guests were whispering now. She told me you said I was a disappointment, I added, and that I wasn't qualified to raise a musician. Regina barked a bitter laugh. Oh, come on. You think one pretty piece proves anything? No, I said. But it was never about proving anything. It was about being honest. The last word hung in the air. Zora looked at her grandmother again. You lied to me? Regina flinched. I didn't lie. I simply didn't want you wasting your time. But I liked learning from Mom, Zora said. It was fun. I felt proud. You made it feel like homework? Regina's mouth opened and closed like she couldn't find her footing. Her control had slipped, and the room saw it. Someone near the snack table whispered, She's embarrassed. And she was. She looked at me one last time, like I'd orchestrated the whole thing, like I'd planned this downfall. I hadn't. She'd done it all herself. After the party, most of the guests left quickly. Some made polite excuses. Others gave me warm nods on their way out. A few even patted Zora's shoulder. Regina disappeared into the guest room, slamming the door behind her. Raphael helped me clean up in silence. After the last plate was washed, he said, I didn't know. I believe you, I said. I should have, he added. I didn't respond. Regina moved out 3 days later. No big speech, no apology. Just a morning suitcase and the door clicking shut. Word got around, as it always does. Some of her old friends stopped calling. Others began rescheduling luncheons. Regina told anyone who'd listen that she'd been ambushed, that I was a manipulator, that Zora had been brainwashed. No one really bought it. Now, it's just the 3 of us again. Zora and I still practice together. Not every day, not with pressure, but with joy. The new violin is still in the house. I don't hate it. It's just wood. It's not its fault. But when Zora plays, I hear something stronger than strings. I hear truth. Last week, she looked at me and said, I want to get better. Maybe even be a real violinist one day, I smiled. You already are. She paused. Do you think Grandma's still mad? I hesitated. Maybe. But she's not the one playing anymore. Zora grinned. Good. Then she raised her bow, eyes on the sheet music I'd written out, and began to play. This time, her high A was perfect,